I think I'm live. Let me check. All right, all right. All right, I think. All right, I think I'm live now. So, hello everyone. And sorry for the delay. Just had a technical problem. It's my first time using Riverside, and I am just testing this out. And today we're gonna talk about your questions about podcasting. So yeah, let's start. By the way, for those who don't know me yet, I am Jubel de Lima. I'm from Philippines and I am a your podcast buddy. You can ask questions about podcastings, how to grow your podcast, how to create media assets, how to distribute your podcast, something like that. So you can ask me questions, all things podcasting. So yeah, so I will pull out some of the questions I have from I receive. I have here some questions from someone about podcasting. Let's talk about podcasting, right? Because me, I started podcasting for me to grow my brand, to showcase my service, how I am going to, the reason behind doing podcasting is like for me to showcase my service, how I'm going to, to show to my clients how I'm doing it on my own podcast. And by doing it, I get able to create media assets, distribute my podcast, show to my clients how I'm doing it on my own. So it's really good starting a podcast because it is something you can give value to your audience by creating your own, no, by having someone on your podcast. Let me check the. All right, bear with me. I'm just starting. This is my first time doing my doing live, and it is, um, yeah, it's exciting. I have a lot of things to talk about here. So let me pull the questions I have here. So someone asked me, um, what do I need to start a podcast? So for me, for you to start a podcast, first thing you must have. a purpose. Why you need to why do you want to start a why do you want to start a podcast? What is the purpose? What is your goal? Who is your target audience? You have to think those um, things um, before you start a podcast. What is the reason behind? You must have a purpose. You must have a deep reason for you on starting your podcast. It can be you want to promote your service, it can be just for fun, you just want it can be you want to learn more from other people, it can be you want to grow your brand and you want to talk with people who are in your niche, like the leader in your niche, like that, so that you can have access to them, you can ask questions freely, so you can lock them in like 30 minutes conversation. So it depends on um the purpose of starting a podcast. And what do you need to start a podcast? In when it comes to things, of course, you need a microphone, recording software like this, Riverside. So this live is sponsored by Riverside. They sponsored me to use their software for free, you know. And they just said just try this out. So it's really cool. You can record here at the same time you can edit your episodes here. You can create clips like that and a lot of things. And this is my first time using it, and for the first time you're just exploring things. I I should have live 11 a.m. EST, but because of the technical problem, I just started my live. Yes, so of course the things you need on starting a podcast, uh, recording software like Riverside, of course a quiet space, and a hosting platform where you can distribute your podcast like Buzzsprout or Anchor. It's up to you. So, but if you don't have a gear or the things that expensive tools to start a podcast, it's okay. You can start a podcast by if you have a good quality laptop. You the audio of that is okay. You can start podcast and you can just invest soon on the tools. The most important in podcasting is not the tools, it's the value that you can bring to your audience. Because sooner or later you can just buy some gears, but the most important thing is why is you're doing podcast. Because I have met people and share with me their journey doing podcasting, that they bought a lot of gear, the expensive mic, camera, something like that. And then after the third, fifth episodes, they get burned out with the things that they need to do. They stop, they pause, something like that. And then after a year, they want to do podcasting, then they go back again. So podcasting must be consistent for you to grow your audience. Because if you are going to just do podcasting for fun, you will not have a loyal listeners. For something like you have a listeners right now and you stop podcasting, and don't expect that when you come back podcasting they still listen to you. Oh, okay, because they must don't have much trust on you doing podcasting, because you're not consistent, you are not always present. So yeah, something like that. So you don't need an expensive gear, you just have a purpose for you to keep going, because it becomes your fuel to keep on doing podcasting. And you have a clear message. What is the message? What is the value you want to share to your audience of doing podcasting? All right. And I have here another question. Let's put it this here. Put it on the screen. So, how long should my podcast episodes be? So, it will be depending on the topic that you want to talk about. So, it can be like maximum 30 minutes is okay. But if you're just starting out, it's okay if you can just do it for 10, 15 minutes or 20 minutes is okay. I met people who is podcasting for only 12 minutes. The most important is the value that you are giving, because not most people have much time to listen with what you're saying, with with everything that you're saying. So that's why we have repurposing things, kind of way to make people listen or hear what we are doing. Because if we are podcasting like 30 minutes, 1 hour, an hour, most people don't have much time to listen or watch. If they're doing something like that, some. But if you're just starting out, 15 minutes or 20 minutes recording is advisable for me. If you're just starting out, the most important is the value that you are saying. Just talk with your guest, and yeah, something like that. You don't need to have an hour, or it depends. It will depends, of course, on your um on your topic that you want to talk. Of course, depends on your guest. If you are recording with a guest, and of course, if you're recording uh, on your own, because there are podcasting that they don't have podcasters that don't have guests. They just speaking the message, speaking what they want to share, something like that. So another question here, in do I need a script or can I just talk? This is something I struggled before, because I have a guest on my, I think he's my third guest, and through my conversation with him, I have a script, or I have a list of questions. I have an intro, I have a list of questions to ask to a guest, to my guest. Of course, if that's the case, or if that's the setup, sometimes it is off to our guest if we are have a series of questions that it kind of like not conversational. It is much more of an interview. For me, podcasting must be much more like in conversation, because conversation is much more relatable, because it is where the the audience are more engaged. All right, you can have a ready questions, but not really rely on questions. You can have a good intro. You can write intro. It's really good to have an intro so that you can introduce your guest very uh, very appealing to your audience, what they are going to expect with your audience, with your guest, I'm sorry, with your guest. So I advise you have a very good intro, you intro to your guest, something like that. And you don't need um, a list of questions, series of questions to talk about. You can have some questions, but don't have a podcast like as if it is just like an series of questions. It must be conversational for of course for the guest to share whatever he or she want to share with you. Ask good questions. You don't need to ask very deep questions. You just ask simple questions and just go deep. Like ask them You would like to know more about what they're talking about, like that, but you don't need to go deep right away, right? So you don't need a script, just have a casual conversation that you are really want to learn more from your guest, something like that. So of course, if you have a script, it fully scripting can sound, of course, very robotic. It is really robotic. And I have another question here. Let's talk about the content in the strategy questions. And the next question is, um, how do I come up with content ideas for my podcast? So, talking about content ideas for your podcast, it's not really hard to think about the content for your podcast. All you have to do is to record, and the number one you already have the full episodes. And before that, I suggest before you launch your podcast, you must have a teaser post. For example, you have a thumbnail promoting your next episode. So it's really good for your audience to know that your next episode guest will be this one. So um, you can repurpose your podcast and create a lot of contents out of it. So I am promoting 20 plus contents per episode. Why? Because the more contents you create from your episodes, it is the more chance of getting um, um, more listens or watch on your full episode, because the short form content can drive more traffic to your full episodes. If you are always on social media and your target audience are always on social media, for example on LinkedIn, and you are always posting snippets or clips, infographics from the full episodes, they might get interested in the full episode. So if you're always there promoting the full video with the short form contents, it can drive traffic to your full episodes, and it may spark interest to your audience. Of course, it's not just that. You can get more presence. You can build your brand with just short form contents, and you can deliver your message using just short form contents. I know someone who don't have much of watch on YouTube, but she have a lot of impressions on LinkedIn. Meaning it doesn't matter the full video. What matter is your message get to your audience. Am I right? Because um, even if you only have 5 views on your YouTube, but the clips from that episode gets over 20,000 impressions, it's much more um, good. Why? Because you deliver your message in pieces. For example, it can give value to you, because if people just listens to the full episode, they don't much have time. But if they get to your snippets, like the clips, short form advice from what you're talking, they can already get value from you. And one of the mistakes of many podcasters is that they just upload the full episode on their Spotify or Apple Podcast and YouTube, and don't promote on social media, where which in fact their audience was on social media. They have a lot of things, good things that said on their podcast. They have good advices. They have really good setup, um, insightful conversation with their guest. But if you don't um put it this way, if you don't clip it, like pull the best advices and put it on social media, um your podcast episodes can go to waste because they might not get into the full episodes. There are podcasters that don't need clips. Why? Because they already have a lot of listeners, they already have a lot of watchers, views. But if you are just starting out, you must promote your podcast, all of the content types, to your social page, like podcast pages, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, so you can meet your audience where they are, because they will not go to your full episodes, they are not yet interested. But if you are always on their feed, sharing advices, your quotes, talking about what you do, about your podcast, about your episode, they might get value from you, and that sparks wherein they get interested in the full episode. All right. So, sorry. So that's it. Repurpose your content. This is very important. Um, I have here another questions. What makes a podcast successful? This is something I am not really. Some people may not listen to me about this. What makes a podcast successful? Because I don't. I am not yet a successful podcaster on my own. But for me, I believe for all of the videos, advices I have from the famous podcasters, because I listen to them, I study about how they grow the podcast. It's always about consistency, all right? Because there are a lot of podcasts right now, like millions of podcasts. Sorry, it's a million of podcasters out there, and for a podcast to be successful, I believe is for you to be consistent. Not just consistent. The consistent is just number one. You have to follow it up with um, promoting your podcast strategically. Number one, consistency. Number two is promoting. It's the marketing. How are you going to promote your podcast? You're not just going to be consistent. You are, because I know someone who already have 600 to 500 to 600 300 episodes recorded on their episode or their podcast, but still they have like 100 subscribers on YouTube. They don't have much followers on LinkedIn on their page. So why? you Most podcasters just focus on recording and uploading, and don't do much of promoting. All right, so there are a lot of ways for your podcast to be successful. How do you say that your podcast is already successful? I can say, let's go back with the purpose of doing the podcast. What is your purpose of doing the podcast? If you are already experiencing and having the purpose you want with your podcast. For example, the purpose of your podcast is to have clients, to build the value, to for you to have value, for you to have more followers on LinkedIn, for you to have clients using a podcast. If you already have that, you are generating leads, you are generating clients from your podcast, you have more followers, you are generating value from your podcast. You can say that your podcast is successful. Most people um, measuring their podcast with podcast downloads. I uh, I I agree to them. If people, a lot of people are there are people who their goal is to have more downloads. It's okay, but you have to get deeper with that, because a lot of people are just downloading it and not really listening and not really getting the value from your podcast, what your message really is with your podcast. So let's go back again with the purpose. You, if you want to grow your brand, even if you have a lot of downloads but you don't see an end result with your podcast. For example, your the reason of your podcast is for you to have value and get more followers, get leads for your business. What if you have a lot of downloads but you don't have leads for your business, and you don't have much of followers, you don't have an active listeners, or no, I'm sorry, active um, community within your podcast? It's still, you are not aligned with the goal of your podcast. So you must have a consistent um, promotion, be consistent with your podcast and promote it on social media. You must be have a clarity on purpose of doing it. All right, so that's it. That's what makes a podcast successful for me. The moment you have the goal, you can say your podcast is successful. It's kind of weird talking alone. Maybe next time I can have someone who can um, join me on my live. hmm So just let's just be consistent with our episodes, because this is the key. Be consistent, promote your podcast endlessly. Yes. All right. So I have another question here. Um, should I focus on a niche? Of course, for me, of course, you must have a niche of your podcast. Why? Who is your target audience? It will tie back on the purpose of your podcast. If you have a service of helping, for example, coaches, consultants, business owners with their business, your podcast must be focused on them, on how you are going to help them. So it's very important to have a niche, because you can't cast a wide net and expect everything. Well, you. My point is, you must have a niche. You must have a focus on your podcast. You must have a specific target audience. So, if people think about something, let's talk about something creatives. If you have podcast about creatives, if people think of creatives and they have problem about creatives, they will go to you, because they will see you as an authority in the creative niche, because you're talking about creative all the time, all the time. For example, I'm talking a lot about podcasting. Most of my content is all about podcasting, about me, about podcasting. So if people always saw you creating content about podcasting, the moment they need help about things about podcasting, you already the first person in their mind. So you will be on top of their mind. So having a niche makes you on top of someone else's mind by having a niche, because you are specific on that topic. If Because, for example, you have a lot of topics on your podcast. If people think about something like this, about podcasting, but you you talk about a lot of things, people will not go into you, because people will know you as someone who's talk a lot of things. So it's very important to have a niche of your podcast. If you are talking about leadership, you must only talk about leadership. Have a guest talking about leadership. It's very important. So niching down, of course, helps you stand out and build a loyal audience. And like other big podcasters, you can just expand soon or later. So here, another question from here. This is my. Let's just talk about for the next two question. Okay, how do I grow my podcast audience? This is related to my other questions to how makes podcast successful. I think so. For you to grow your podcast audience, of course, it will ties back again with being consistent, having a clear purpose, and you must have a clear, um, very niche audience. And by that, you can target your audience and create contents that resonates with them. And if you're talking about audience, um, you must be on wherever they are. Like they're on social media and you are on Spotify. How are you going to drive them on Spotify? So if you're not repurposing your content, you are losing the chance for them to get into your Spotify full episode. But if you repurpose content, for example, you create a quote or a clip about your podcast and you post it on LinkedIn and your target audience are on LinkedIn and they saw it and they want to know more and they want to listen to the full episode, they get curious, they will you have to put the link on the post and they will go to your link and they will listen. Something like if you are on social media every day, you create contents about your podcast and you are always on their feed, you will never know. They will get interested with you. They will interested with your full episode. Why? Because you're talking about them. You're talking about their problems. You're talking about solving their problem as a business owner. If it depends on the the contents that you are putting out in your podcast, like because your audience, of course, is your target clients or something like that, target audience. So you have to create contents for them because if you have target audience and you are not creating contents for them, it doesn't make sense. So if you have a target audience, you must have a content for that target audience. That it must resonates. The content must resonates with them. So that makes them watch or listen to your full episode. All right. And so you have to promote clips on social media, of course, and that is the number one thing on growing your podcast. If you are not to growing your audience, if you are not repurposing your content, you are wasting your full episodes. The you know the opportunity of your full episodes, you might get clients from it. You can get speaking gigs from it. You will never know. So you have to repurpose. And this is uh, my last question. So let me add here my last question. My last question is, should I be on YouTube too? Of course, you should be on YouTube. But if you have a only audio podcast, um, but I don't, mm, I know someone who only have audio podcast. But if you have a podcast with video, you must be on YouTube. Why? YouTube is a search engine also, so people can look up to you there. when they search your name, something like that. And some people want not just to listen, but some people want to watch you while talking, because watching can um, get create more value or credibility to someone, because it kind of different when you are watching a person talking by just listening. All right, it's kind of different. I know you know about that, that if you are watching a person and talking, it kind of different. You kind of know him or her by just watching. But if you can just listening, it's not that kind of level of connection, because the level of connection by watching is different from just listening. So if you have a podcast, video podcast, you must be on YouTube. So people, if they want to watch more about your episode, they can go to YouTube. But you must have repurpose your content strategically, not just repurpose it, create content like that. No, you must have uh, a strategy on creating a content that resonates with your audience. All right. So I think that's all for now. Thank you so much for anyone who's watching this right now. I really appreciate your time, and see you next week for another AMA live, and let's talk about podcasting. And I will think of ways maybe I can have someone who can be with me on my live, so that I can have a conversation with someone talking about podcasting. It might, I will see. But thank you so much for your time, and I hope you learned something. Thank you, bye bye, and God bless.